We got 2 Kings 25, 2 Chronicles 36, Jeremiah 40 and 41, and Revelation chapter 12. We're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 25, at least to begin with, and it's the last chapter in this book before it turns over to Chronicles, and it talks about what had been prophesied in some of what we've been reading over these last months in the different prophets and major prophets as well. The fall of Judah and how Babylon's going to take over and that they're going to be held in captivity. And so that's what this chapter is about. And so it says, in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with his army against Jerusalem and laid siege to it. They built siege works all around it. The city was besieged till the 11th year of King Zedekiah. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city there was no food for the people of the land. A breach was made in the city, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls, by the king's garden, and the Chaldeans were around the city. And so they're trying to escape, and they got captured and slaughtered. And they put out the eyes of Zedekiah and bound him in chains and took him to Babylon. So, not good. In the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, that was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem, and he burned the house of the Lord, the king's houses, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Every great house he burned down. And the army of the Chaldeans who were with the captain of the guard broke down the walls around Jerusalem. The rest of the people were left in the city, and the deserters who had deserted to the king of Babylon, together with the rest of the multitude, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried into exile. The captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and plowmen. Carried away parts, of the house of the Lord and all the different pieces and all of that was carried away to Babylon. And then they remained under a governorship under the king of Babylon. And it's you go back to the beginning of Kings and, even further into Samuel, and what once was, what could have been, and then what it became. The nation of Israel gets split into two, so you have Israel and Judah, and then eventually Israel gets taken over by the Assyrians, and now here Judah is falling to the Babylonians. And it tells us several things that we need to take note of in and for historical purposes, but also biblical principles that remain true till today. God keeps his word. That's one. God said, if you do good, you'll be rewarded and be blessed. If you don't do good, there'll be consequences. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, if you go after other gods and other idols, I'm going to send things and people to discipline you, to try to bring you back. And that was the story, again and again. And then the warnings were, guess what? Judgment's coming. And so there was some delay in it, as some kings would try to stem the tide by repenting and turning from their evil ways and the ways of their forefathers, but never enough, not nearly enough. So God keeps his word, because he said there'd be consequences. And then he said, you're going to go into exile. And so these things happen. We also know that God's merciful and gracious. It took a long time to get to this point. And then it's only for a limited time. And there's a plan to bring them back, as we read in Jeremiah. And so God's gracious. So what does that mean for us today as we look back on historical things that are done and over with? It's history. How can we apply those kind of situations and those kind of national things to our lives individually, our lives as Christians, as part of the body of Christ? Well, God says what he means and means what he says. And so that's still true today when he talks about the various ways to live life, things to do, things not to do. Oh, okay. When it comes to prophecy and about things to come, we can know for sure that they will happen because God has said it. And so it will happen, just as he said these things would happen, and they came to pass. It helps us to be reminded this isn't home, that our dwelling place is in heaven, that we're temporary residents, we're strangers, and we're aliens, And so while we're here, we're ambassadors, and we got a job to do, to live out the faith and be lights in the darkness. Till next time, keep growing little by little.